Welcome to State of the Sky. It's the podcast for Skyweaver news, metagame, community events, and everything else. Joining me today is my friend and co-host, JustAddBacon. What's up, Bacon?
Not much, geenareeno. How's it going with you?
It's going pretty good. We are living in an exciting time right now as Skyweaver just went into soft launch.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's finally here.
We waited a long time for this.
Yeah.
And things have been pretty exciting since that happened. There's been a lot of activity in the Discord, a lot of people playing Conquest, a lot of people trying to buy USDC so they can earn those gold cards and silver cards. How have you been enjoying these soft launch activities?
For the couple hours I had to play Discovery, not gonna lie, not my thing. Me and Freud both kind of just wanted to blow our brains out. Other than that, once I got my gold and silver cards, it has been absolutely amazing. I could not be happier with it.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We had to wait so long, and I remember the first time I got excited for soft launch was over a year ago. I was like, oh my god, it's gonna happen. They were announcing it in the Discord literally over a year ago. And then it happened a couple more times, and so I just learned not to get my hopes up. So this time I knew it was real, but I didn't get it as hype as I would have. But once it finally came and I was playing, I was like, wow, this is awesome. You put something on the line and you can win a reward. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah. Especially with Conquest and all that, the ability to grind. I've been having so much fun building out a collection with this now.
Yeah, it's great to kind of start from the beginning again and unlock all the cards. It really brings back the memories of when I first started playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, soft launch is here. Comes with a lot of things. Everything is live now. There's going to be no more resets. Everything got wiped. Everything got reset. But now that's the last time that'll happen. So everything from this point forward is going to stick around. All the gold cards and silver cards we earn. I guess the first thing we can talk about is how crazy it was when it dropped and everyone was trying to buy the initial supply of gold cards and the prices just skyrocketed. I think Mother Thera was over 1,000 USDC.
Reportedly, it was for just a few minutes. I can't speak on that. What I do know is that there was some moment I saw where Olympia, which by the way, Olympia is not especially good as a card. It's a 6-mana unit that gives your board banner. You can be doing a lot more and much better things with that 6 mana, but Olympia, for whatever reason, because it was just one of the gold cards, it was at $183 at one point, and it was absolutely ridiculous. I know Alpha Sapphire, he was able to play his games out, and he's actually really good at Discovery. So he got one early. He cashed that thing in so fast, it'll make your head spin.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of bag grabbers right at the start, and people frantically trying to purchase cryptocurrency and trying to put in buy orders on the market, and of course only so many could go through, and the prices just rapidly went up.
Yeah, I was very sad. I was trying to do crypto because I wanted to just drop money, buy a constructed deck right out the gate and do that, but I was not able to. So I had to grind the hard way.
You had some troubles with the state you're from, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is that Wire, the in-game wallet crypto thing, doesn't seem to serve Texas, which is very odd because I know that Texas is a very crypto-friendly state, so I'm not really sure why they wouldn't. But there are issues with I just have a debit card and my bank is no, crypto is a scam and crypto not real, and I'm yeah, sure, buddy, okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been having problems with that, but I think as time goes on, people will figure out the best methods and find ways that work. For me, I used Wire in-game in the in-game wallet, and I just got a text from my bank, and I just had to confirm, and it worked. So that was lucky for me. But I know a lot of people, Canadian or American, have been having troubles, and apparently people in New York can't buy it at all.
Yeah, I know one guy, my friend Freud, who also despises Discovery with me. He just messaged somebody who actually had the crypto working, and he just Venmoed them like $120 to buy a deck,
Oh
which
my god.
he very jealous that worked. Like, did not have the guts has to Venmo somebody $120.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you really don't want to play Discovery and you just want to get right to Constructed, that's one way to do it.
If I had the courage, that is exactly what I would have done.
But before we fully get into soft launch, we got to rewind a bit since the last episode. A few things have happened, and there was a brief period in between before soft launch. So I just wanted to go over that before we get into it. What did you do in the few weeks between our last episode and the release of soft launch?
Oh boy. So, for those of you keeping up with SkyweaverLeagues.com, which has guides, deck builds, meta reports, and more, not a plug, I was dying trying to finish up a series I had started. I was writing all these articles on like Foxfire decks because I really wanted to like codify that knowledge before we got into launch. A, because I want a lot of people to play Fox and have fun with Fox, because Fox is like the best hero for like being cool and doing cool things. So I was working on that, and that was a bit of a project. The first part of that, if you look online, like part 2 is 27 minutes long as a read. So to that end, I was playing a crap ton of just Heatwave, because Heatwave Fox is like really fun and smooth. And I was also playing one Axel deck, because I was hoping to get Whisk Away nerfed before launch came about.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those guides. I checked them out a bit. You put a lot of work into it, so nice job there. It's a lot. It's a big project, and the guides are good. So no, we want to plug Skyweaver Leagues. It's a great site. It's a friend of ours, and yeah, there's lots of good stuff on there.
My eyes are red, but my elo is high.
Yeah, and Heatwave, for those who don't know, is a Fox deck that combines fire and air cards. That's why it's called Heatwave. And then what else do you have? You have Smelt, which is fire and metal, and what's the fire and light one called?
Flash and Burn. I named
Flash and
all of
Burn.
these, and I love them. Heatwave plays around with like tricky shroud and stealth units, so it can be like it's like this kind of speedy one. It also has like the best disruption out of any of them. So like if you're queuing into a lot of Horic, you can just drop Huntaro onto like their Opal Golem and watch them cry as their hand dissolves. Flash and Burn is the more like strength focused one. You just have a lot of these really well statted units like Light Ranger and Khan, and you kind of just like beat people up. It works pretty well. And then Smelt is like the tricky one, because you either have these kind of complicated trap plays, which is where like you're trying to pick apart a hole in your opponent's removal, and then you just exploit that with other things. Or you can kind of go like a mid-range style, where you just play a bunch of big metal units, but I'm not as big on that. Because like if you want mid-range and Fox, play Flash and Burn, not Smelt.
I see. Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, for me, I was kind of skirting the edge of top 500, and I really wanted to secure my spot in to get that gold card. And I had just been playing random stuff and testing things, so my elo kind of tanked, and I wasn't really sure what deck I wanted to use to climb. So I went back to one of the old tried and true, which is the Axel Ether Rise deck that uses Ether Whale and Ancient's Rise to kind of recur the big units that you pull out with Ether Whale, and it ended up working very well. Went on a win streak and got myself back up to excuse me, about 250 or so. So secured my spot there, and I was pretty happy about that.
Okay, so quick question: can you not play that deck? It's kind of uncool, man.
No, I will continue to play that deck because it's my little baby. I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I really thought just asking politely would work, so I'm not really sure what to do now.
I changed a bit when I started playing. I added a card, Take Flight, which I almost never run, but it works pretty well in that deck because if you pull out some big units and then they chip away at them, you can bounce it back to your hand and play it again, back at full strength. And the way Take Flight works is it's 3 cost and it gives the unit -2 cost. So you essentially can replay the unit for 1 more mana than it originally cost, but this time it comes with +2/+2 and Shroud, which is pretty strong.
Yeah. Why don't you explain what the general strategy of Aether Rise is? Because I don't think everyone's familiar with that.
Sure. Well, Aetherwell decks in general run just a small number of units, and they're all going to be like high cost, big stat units, maybe like between 6 to 10 of them. And then the rest of the deck is removal, draw, and sometimes mulligans and combo pieces like Rosewater Charm and Orchid. So Ether Whale is like the core card, and then you have Gift of Aya, which draws your highest cost Earth spell, which it draws Ether Whale in this case. Then you have Eldritch Lore, which can pull Gift of Aya because it's your only 5 mana spell. And then Rosewater can help you ramp up to that early. And Orchid also cost reduce and gives a mana, so you kind of want to get Ether Whale in your hand and then play it as soon as possible. And there's lots of like cheap removal to try to stop against aggro, things like Incinerate, Funeral Moon, Eradicate, all the Wizheart staples. And I also run Buckler Up to either remove the roots, or since I run Sky Phoenix, you can throw it on that and make it undustable to try to get a guaranteed res. And then you have Sky Channel. What's it called again?
It's either
The
like
rainbow
Sky
card.
Aura or Sky. Let me find it.
They changed the name recently. It's
Sky Channel.
hard to remember. Yeah, Sky Channel. That's it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So honestly, I feel like this card is a bit OP. We can get into that later, but yeah. So overall, the deck just tries to remove everything the opponent plays, and then once it has Ether Well, throws down some big units. And then the cherry on top is the Ancient's Rise, because once you have 3 units in grave, you can play it, and you can get some absurd Ancient's Rise. Like for 8 mana, you can drop like over 20 points of attack and health with something like Sky Phoenix, Octavian, and Amaruoth or something. And it also runs Jackinsu and Libra for healing. So recurring those is very strong as well, and helps keep you alive.
I will say, the Axel deck I was running right before launch can actually do something similar, because it's also an Ancient's Rise deck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, except this one, it plays like a lot more death units. It's kind of like a Titanic loop, except here the Royal's loop target is Comet, so that way you can recur Coswrath. But the trick is that we've got like Undergrowth and Unfallow here, along with Crypto, Crystal, Tragic Poet, Giza, and Opal Golem. And you might notice Comet and Menglong are both dragons that really like to cost reduce themselves. And whenever you play like Undergrowth, that makes Comet really cheap. Whenever you are drawing a million cards from like, I don't know, Unfallow or all of these cheap 1-cost units, you tend to fill up your hand very nicely for Menglong. So you could actually drop these dragons pretty early if you draw them. And then, whenever you've like Undergrowth or used Unfallow to clean up your discard pile, now in this deck that is already going to res like a Mr. Whiskers and a Flame Phoenix off of Ancient's Rise, you also just get a random Comet in there, and it's just hilarious.
Right, yeah, I saw that deck you posted, and I was thinking it looked pretty scary.
Oh, it is disgusting. The only issue with it is that we have Evermore and Seal Doom both at 4, and we have Doomsday and Undergrowth both at 6, which means that it is a bit hard for Eldritch Lore to consistently hit Seal Doom or Doomsday. Just rip it from your deck. But that's
Right.
like such a minor issue, and it's so good regardless, it doesn't matter. Secondary little secret part of this is it takes full advantage of not just like the Giza into Undragon thing, which is so stupid, but we run Ancient's Rise and Sky Channel in the deck, which means that we can use Gift of Aya or Eldritch Lore to get an out-of-deck Aether Whale.
That's nasty.
Yeah, the whole goal of this deck is not to play in its own deck, it's to set itself up for a good out-of-deck game.
Right, like a true lame Axel deck.
Yep, that's exactly it.
But I mean, that's pretty cool too. I like decks that kind of set up out of deck stuff. There was one deck Hanu Street played a long time ago, Mono Wiz deck, that it ran every Earth spell other than Orchid, and then when you Prismata, you would get guaranteed Orchid and could cost reduce all the cards down to 0.
Oh, that's clever.
But I don't think it was very good because when you run every other Earth spell, you kind of fill up your deck with some not very good cards.
I do know there was another one that somebody put together where it was Axel, and they were running every metal spell except for Sentry Key, and every air spell except for Montage, so that way you could Prismata and then play Sentry Key, play all of your spells, and then Montage and just smack their face for like 20 damage.
Oh my god.
That's pretty awesome.
I don't think it was good, but just the concept is so funny.
Mm-hmm. There's so many great like meme decks or just like creative little things you can do.
Yeah.
Alright, so that covers the pre-launch activities, kind of the decks we were playing. And then soft launch happened, and it was exciting. You were there in the patch stream, I was too. There was a lot of hype, a lot of good energy. But let's talk about our day one experience of soft launch and playing. So why don't you go first? What was it like? I suppose your experience started with not being able to buy USDC.
Oh, yeah. So my experience started with, okay, for those of us in like the States, launch day was also on Thanksgiving, which was just,
Oh right.
yeah, just a wee bit awkward. Although my family is divorced, so like I had Thanksgiving with my mother and my stepdad on Wednesday, so like that was actually working out pretty well. But Thursday, I went over to go spend time with my dad. So that morning, I was waiting for like the freaking launch before I went over to go like see him for lunch, because it was supposed to launch at like 11 where I am, right? And then it ended up being like 11:30 or whatever, and I was trying to get the crypto to work, and it just didn't work. And then, like, literally, as soon as I walk out the door to go over to my dad's house, it's like, okay, launch is here. And I'm like, well, that's good for them. And then I drive over to my dad's. I have, like, a good lunch. I see him and my stepmom, some of his family, and all that. And then, like, I just stayed over there because I spent time with him. But, like, also, I was just over there for, like, 5 hours. And I'm like, I really love my dad. I really do love my dad. Also, I really want to play Skyweaver right now. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just sitting there. Like, occasionally, what I did was I got on my phone whenever like we weren't really doing anything, and I was opening up the Skyweaver app, and I just was reading the card lore, and I went through and I read all 500 cards.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then I came back over here later that night at about, I'd say, 8 or so, and then I just played until like 1. It was Discovery, and I kind of hated it, but also it was Skyweaver, so pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for me as well. I was at work all day on Thursday and just constantly on my phone looking at Discord, reading Discord, checking out some streams, looking at the price of the gold cards like skyrocket. And like just wishing I had like booked the day off work and like tried to get in on this, but you know, it's good to go to work instead of playing video games, I guess.
That is generally preferable as a life strategy.
Mm-hmm. Although I may have been able to make more money that day playing Skyweaver than going to work if I had managed to get the crypto on time and get my orders through. But you know, but better safe than sorry. Probably my workplace appreciated me being there instead of playing video games.
I think so I am no crypto whiz at all. I'm pretty sure the one rule of crypto is like don't invest in crypto or something.
Yeah, I'm not really either. I dabbled a bit, but there's definitely a lot more people in this space that are more into crypto than either of us.
Yeah, my experience is pretty much buying Dogecoin in like, what was it, April or whenever, and I made like 40 bucks
Yeah.
on Dogecoin, and then I lost like 200 because Elon Musk like pump and dumped me.
I also bought Dogecoin, and I was looking at its price the afternoon of the Saturday Night Live episode, and if I had sold then, I would have been like in the clear. I didn't have much money, like the same thing. I would have made like 40 bucks or so, but I waited, and then after that episode, it just tanked. So
Well, see, I was actually all ready to sell like during the SNL episode, The issue was that I started playing freaking Skyweaver, and so I forgot that the episode was happening, and then whenever I checked my phone like 30 minutes later, the price had already tanked.
Yeah, it's very volatile, very risky. Definitely do not take any financial advice from either of us. That's what I'll say.
If I say something in terms of like investment advice, probably do the opposite, except me saying to do the opposite would also mean that you should do the opposite of the opposite. So just vapid nonsense is all you're going to get from me. I cannot help you.
Yep. So yeah, day one was crazy, and now the gold and silver cards are live. We're seeing the prices. The gold cards, they started out in the hundreds, and now they've kind of stabilized to around $20 or $30 each. I think next time new ones are minted, they're gonna go wild again. And these ones, now that they've crashed back down to like kind of a stable price, they're gonna slowly gain value over time as the time that they were minted becomes further in the past. They'll just like slowly appreciate value, I think.
Yeah, demand increases without supply being able to increase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the silver cards, it's pretty cool how since you can use them to enter a conquest run, they won't really drop below $1.50, and it'll kind of keep them stable in that way.
Yeah. I was seeing somebody talk about like a fear of them always dropping, like just ending up at $1.50, which I don't feel like the end behavior may be the trend down towards $1.50, but I feel like cards should always be some bit above $1.50 for silvers.
Yeah, I think some of them will be, but the like not very good cards will get there, because I mean the way it works is like if it's ever worth more than $1.50, you can just sell it on the market for that price, and then you still get your conquest entry ticket, which costs $1.50, but you have a little bit extra. And if it's ever less than $1.50, you would never sell it for that. You just burn it, and burning it reduces the supply and pushes the price up a little bit. So
yeah, it's a clever setup.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how they work that out. Just as an aside, someone in the Dog Pound Discord, Lloyd, well, he was formerly called Grand Weaver Lloyd. He's now going by Bumble King. He's Bumblegoo on Twitch. You guys might know him. He's somewhat active in the Discord, prolific Discovery player, has many accounts in the top 100. He told me that he made, I won't say the exact number, but between $1,000 and $2,000 on launch day by buying gold cards. So I thought that was pretty absurd.
Yeah.
So good for him. He can now fund Dog Pound. Speaking of Dog Pound is back. We're back, baby. Good Dog has returned. The gang Discord is active. We didn't talk about it in the last episode, but you guys probably know that JustAddBacon is the leader of Foxfang, his little guild there, and I am not in Foxfang. I am in Dog Pound, and yeah. If you guys want to join, either hit us up.
Y'all aren't going to be where it's invite only for good players now? You aren't going to do that elitist crap?
Well, how it works is anyone can join, but to be a certain role in the server, you have to achieve a certain rank. We're still working out the details, but I think it's cool that we have these groups, and kind of the point of them in the first place was so that we can compete against each other and have these hype events. We had 2 turf wars, I think, and both of them are pretty awesome. So
So this is funny. Pulling up Good Dog in the server, you claim he is back. On November the 19th, he sent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 messages. And then on launch day, he sent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 messages. Yep,
Hey,
guys, he's back. He's back.
There's more to this game than sending messages in the Discord.
He came back for 2 days out of a week. You know, honestly, like, if he's back, great. I like Good Dog. Good Dog is, like, generally a cool dude. But like, what does Dog Pound even do? Like, Foxfang is, like, a community server. We do, like, outreach. We try to help people. We, like, have a community and all this. Does Dog Pound even like do things now? Because previously y'all kind of just like sat around and then just fought us.
Yeah, we're going to be hosting tournaments in-house and stuff, but I mean, if you want to know what's going on in the Dog Pound server, you got to join. I'll say that much.
Oh, that's funny.
And also,
Dog Pound won't
the only proof you need.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's funny because Dog Pound won't let Foxfang members join, despite Foxfang letting Dog Pound members join.
I don't think that's true, actually.
Really, because Good Dog himself has messaged me saying, yeah, I'd rather, like, for the sake of the rivalry or whatever, which is like all Dog Pound exists for anyways.
Well, I'm not gonna let the leader of Foxfang speak for Dog Pound. So, if you are in Foxfang and you want to join, contact us. We'll work something out. It's a secret policy.
I'd like to join the server.
I'm not so sure about that.
Dog
But I was gonna say before,
loves to show their colors.
The only proof you need of Good Dog being back is that before soft launch, his deck was #1 on the leaderboard.
You're going to use the deck leaderboard, and also
I mean,
he
was playing.
He was crushing.
Okay, sure, that is a uncontestable claim. Anyways, speaking of gangs and tournaments and all that, Foxfang is going to be hosting the first official Skyweaver tournament post soft launch. It is going to be on the weekend of January the 1st. Signups are open to anybody if anybody wants to like compete in this tournament. The current plan is for it to be constructed mode. It is going to be either single or triple deck list. I'm still hammering out rules with people, and there's also going to be room for input from competitors who want to actually like play in it. I'm going to be joined by Zygote of Skyweaver Leagues. He's the one who like runs the website. Great guy. And also the illustrious, absolutely handsome and beautiful dev, Coulter Baker, will be joining me on the stream for commentary. So like it's going to be a hype event. I am super excited for everyone to be there. It's just going to be a great time. Message me on Discord if you want to compete.
Nice, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I'll probably join.
Yeah, come play your Aether Rise deck and watch me cry on stream because you're playing Aether Rise.
Alright. I will probably do that. Okay. So, what else we got going on for Conquest and soft launch? The win traders is one thing, which I think was recently addressed, because a lot of people were trying to win trade by queuing into themselves and canceling.
Yes, okay.
Did that get changed?
Yeah, okay. So Marcelo, the absolute Chad that he is, sent out a little message yesterday at about 3 p.m. for me. Like, we just rolled out a small update to fix a few things and change Conquest queuing. Now, if you queue Conquest, you cannot decline a Conquest match found. So if you're ready to start your Conquest run, please have that in mind. And then he just says, like, we'll have some better quality light stuff and all that. And then here's where the drama kicks in, because I just love this. Somebody goes into the Talk to the Devs chat, and, like, I normally don't really care too much for people, like, just, like, saying stupid stuff, because, like, people say stupid stuff all the time. Where this person gets on here, I'm not going to name them, because I think that'd be a step too far. But they start, like, saying, what kind of dictatorship is this? We want real democracy in our games. Like, I didn't really say anything. Yeah, they were saying that, like, yeah, we think this is a bad decision. Is this a dictator's game? Why not allow a...
That's so weird.
Side? Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously, like, maybe there's a language barrier there, which is, like, understandable. And I didn't really understand what was going on at first until somebody else replies to them and say, like, you're just mad because you were doing this to grind, like, gold cards with alternate accounts. I'm like, oh! So, yeah, I thought that was really funny. It's like, as soon as the announcement goes out, somebody's, like, mad they can't grind infinite gold cards.
Yeah, that's definitely up. I don't see, like, there's no other reason to be upset, like, that you can't cancel a Conquest match. Like,
if you don't have time for a Conquest run, hear me out. Don't start a Conquest run.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that may be difficult for some people, but I'm sure if they just put their minds to it, they can really manage to not hit the button that says Start Conquest Run and then has a pop-up warning say, once you start your run, you'll be locked into a hero, and you will not be able to cancel a match found.
Yeah, and like if you're putting something on the line, like you paid $1.50 for a ticket, you should be kind of like ready and like have some time cleared out to commit to that.
Yeah. It's also just like irritating whenever like you're trying to queue a game and you get it and then they just cancel.
Yeah. There's a new arena in Conquest. That's pretty cool with the statues.
Yeah, it is pretty sick. For those of you who are of the less observant type, keep note of the statues as you go through your games, because they will actually light up depending on how many games you've won.
And that's something we saw on the like Conquest screen in the menu before, but now in the actual arena there are statues, and it makes things look a little more different to differentiate it just from ranked normal games. Add some hype and some prestige to the mode, so I think that's really great.
Yeah, I'm also just excited because this sets the precedent for like more changes to the island in the future, which I know
same.
devs have talked about.
That's a big thing for the success of the game, I think, is making the island and the arena look really good.
Well, the whole of the game is an avenue that you can use for like storytelling. You can tell like a lot of interesting features about like this world and stuff with the island. And also just gives the game like a unique character. Like Hearthstone is like in the tavern or whatever, you're just playing on a table. I know Eternal, it was kind of this like ephemeral like jungle but plain, but not saying it was weird. It wasn't really the script. Which is odd because like I thought Eternal was an amazing game. But Skyweaver, like every part of it connects it back into itself. It's very cohesive in that way.
Yeah, it's great. That's actually where I was going to go with this too, is like maybe there's some lore with these statues, like what are they, what are they doing there, what do they mean?
Yeah, because there's a very... I've been going through, like I said, I've read every single lore card now. There's a very strange connection in Skyweaver between like science and like magic and mysticism. I'm not exactly sure how thorough it is, if it's like magic works like a science, or like there is science and then there's magic, or like if science is an outgrowth of magic or something, but there could be any number of things that we're doing whenever we're actually doing a conquest run here.
Right, yeah. That's interesting. Another big change with this patch was the card layout changing. So they moved the prism from being kind of a transparent thing onto the side to an actual emblem at the bottom of the card that has a color on it, and they also put the element of the card printed in words. So instead of just being a green card, it's now green and it says Earth and has a little icon for the Earth element. And you can now tell whether a card is a unit or a spell just by looking at it and reading it. They have that there as well beside the element with a little symbol to help, which I think is great, because that was, I mean, for people who play the game a lot, you learn after a while which cards are units and spells, and it's kind of easy to tell based on the artwork. But for a lot of new players, it makes the game a lot harder to... Well, I guess the obvious thing before was whether or not it has stats. It kind of tells you whether it's a unit or a spell, but I think to make the game accessible, it's a good change for sure.
Yeah, speaking of accessibility, there is apparently one member of the dev team who is colorblind, who I remember speaking to, and they explicitly mentioned that this change was really helpful for them, because, like, obviously when you're colorblind, like, you don't really see colors in the same way that people do. So having the change set up to where, like, you have a little just text word that actually tells you what element it is, I'm sure can be very helpful.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more clear.
Yeah, and also having the prism at the bottom, I'm sure, helps as well. Because, like, if you're on grayscale the colorblind, which I don't think he was, but, like, if you are, I imagine that the little embedded icons we had before could get, like, really hard, because they probably just fade into each other.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing I don't like is that before there was a very like clean color scheme look, and like on a card like Nocturna, it was like all purple and dark and stuff, and now it kind of has this like bright green thing at the bottom. But that's just me being kind of picky and disliking change. But I think overall it's much better.
Honestly, I think the little prism color at the bottom adds like a bit of intrigue to it. It makes it. I kind of like the difference.
Yeah, a lot of other people probably feel the same way, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also added a description for enchant. So if you hover over an enchant, it'll say the element of the enchant and also tell you that it's an enchant and has a little symbol for that as well. So that it is very important to differentiate enchants from spells, from attached spells, because I know that was confusing for a lot of people at first.
Yeah. Hey, I keep trying to play this flame spell to do 2 damage to an enemy, but it's not working.
Yeah. So it's great that the cards kind of got like a facelift and an updated look for soft launch. Pretty happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, they look like clean now.
They do. And speaking of facelifts and changes, the Discord that we all hang out in got quite a few changes. It has a new icon, new organization, and there's been a lot of activity in there lately. Of course, everyone's getting pretty excited, and there's an influx of new players asking questions, posting technical issues, and yeah, it's really exciting to see so much activity.
Yeah. It's kind of a bit chaotic though. I've been like trying to make sure like I'm helping people and everything, but there is a lot going on in the server now.
Yeah, there is. We had to shift some things around at first, because when I first saw it, it was like, oh my god, like what happened? All my favorite channels are gone. Like, where's beta discussion?
Yeah, did actually. Originally, they had accidentally, or maybe it wasn't accidentally, gotten rid of the card suggestion channel. But I like pinged the Chauvery like 5 times and talked to Des, and I'm like, please bring it back, please bring it back. And then she's like, okay, Bacon. And so I got her to bring back the like card suggestions channel, which is mostly just for like custom cards and stuff. But now we can like put little made up lore things on them, which I think is really fun.
For sure. Yeah, and we also got a game discussion channel added because I think Ron and Kiru and I were saying how we miss having a channel just to talk for stuff about that, because as it was right when it got changed, like general was really the only place to talk about stuff, and as you know, like a general channel in a Discord is just going to be filled with like random people asking the same questions over and over, so it makes it kind of hard to discuss things in chat. So it's good to have a game discussion channel. But pretty exciting stuff. New layout. I feel like my mind got rearranged as the Discord got rearranged or something.
The one thing I don't like is that I'm so used to having like beta discussion up at the top.
Yeah.
Now I have to go hunting for all of the channels.
Yeah, change is hard. I think last thing before we move on is, well, I just want to recount my experience of playing it first on launch day. I managed to buy some USDC, got some tickets, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna win a gold card. Like, I'm not the best Discovery player, but I'm pretty good, I think. And then queued up as Titus somehow, lost my first game. And I was like, okay, that's unlucky. I'll go again. Picked Ada, lost my first game again. I'm like, oh my god, what's happening? I try Lotus, lose again. So 3 runs, I lost my first game, and I'm like, oh my god, I suck at this game. Like, what's happening? I'm gonna burn through all my tickets. Yeah. I was like, I should be able to go at least even. Like, I'll get 1 win, make my ticket back, play again. But and then on my 4th run, I managed to get 1 win, won a silver hive. It was worth like 3 something, so worth 2 tickets. So that's nice. And haven't played too much since then, but I need to practice Discovery, that's for sure, and learn how to be better at it, because it's actually quite intriguing how like both how difficult it is and how much skill expression there is. Like, it seems like the random game mode, and you can definitely get screwed over by your opponent high rolling or having a terrible deck, but for the most part, it's really up to the skill of the player, and most matches are winnable. So
Yeah, I just queued Ada. I'm looking at my profile right now for 12 matches. And out of 12 matches, what's 83% of 12? Because whatever that is, that's how many games I won. I am not really, like, into Discovery at all. I did not play Discovery at all during the, like, closed beta. But, like, I just messaged Kiru a while back. I'm like, hey, I have, like, a new account that I need to grind. And, like, I need to get, like, some wisdom cards. And, like, how do you do that? And he's like, okay, so basically Ada is just going to ruin you. But you play, like, Lotus and you can do that. I'm like, okay. So I just queued Ada for a couple games. I just stomped people. Because Ada in Discovery is so stupid. Like, you'll get the random turn 1 Mushka, the turn 1 Squiddy. You'll get, like, Grunk Earthrune, which I actually had happen off that random junk, and it's just stupid. More importantly, I messaged my good friend Ufrat, Loud and Proud Foxfang member, by the way, and I got him to send me, like, $4.50 for Conquest tickets, and I took that, and I was able to win my Discovery games. So I was able to kind of just, like, snowball from there. And now I need to, like, send him back his money still, but, like, I have that.
That's the cool thing, is if you win, you can take a couple tickets and never have to buy them again.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I started building out a Fox deck, because, like, Foxes... I really like Fox. But, as I kept playing, I kept running into, like, random BS from people, and I'm like... There was one game I played against somebody, and I lost the entire game because they just dropped Wall of Dead, which is such a stupid good card. And I'm like, wait a sec, why am I trying to play, like, this hard skill expression, like, Fox deck, when I should really just be, like, playing Zoe Bloodhunter? So I just took, like, what money I had. I bought Wall of Dead, I bought Grimlord, I bought Bloodhunter, and I stayed up until 2 last night playing, and I have not lost a game with this deck yet.
Whoa. Yeah, double Wall of Dead with Bloodhunter is quite the combo.
Well, it's just stupid, it's safe, it's effective, and even, like, the low roll is you play Wall of Dead, they play Coloss Wipe. Okay, well, that's a 3 mana difference. Also, I burned your face for 6. Now I play Wall of Dead number 2. What is your answer?
Yeah, like 2 Wall of Deads going off if you get every Zomboid, that's like, you know, a third of your opponent's HP or more.
Yeah, it's really not hard either, because, like, you have Pair of Jacks, Gus is 2 units, like, all of my 1-cost units draw another 1. We've got Viper Charmer here, which makes, like, 4, so I really only need to get, like, 1 or 2 specific cards before turn 6, and I can just curve out a Wall of Dead every game.
Yeah, Flurry as well, drops 3 units.
Oh, yeah, I should get Flurry, shouldn't I? See, the thing with this deck is that, like, I'm not the most experienced with Zoe, so, like, I have Unfellow in here, but I also have Parajax and Vipers, and then 4 other 1-cost units, so I'm not sure if I should. But also, Unfellow is just a good card, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's super good, especially in Zoe. If you run Fly Guy, I don't know if you have one of those, they're quite expensive.
I don't have Fly Guy yet, but I've been watching the price. Oh, he's all the way down to $7. I could buy Fly Guy.
Most expensive silver card on the market right now is Incinerate, $26.
Incinerate is not worth $26.
It is extremely good, though.
It's pretty darn good.
It's interesting to look at the price of silver cards and, like, try to see if that maps onto, like, how strong cards are in the meta right now. Like, if we just read from the top, it's Incinerate, Glorious Mane, Titanic, Mushroom, Nightmare, Canopy Archer, Queen of Jacks, Bloodhunter. And, like, some of those are very good, but, like, Nightmare, Canopy Archer, Queen of Jacks, I don't really think of as, like, some of the strongest cards in Constructed, so it's interesting that their prices are that high.
So Canopy Archer, I will actually say, could be worth $10. Canopy Archer plays a very important role in a lot of Fox decks because it is demon food. You run Canopy Archer, you run Flashbang, you run Cookbook, and then you put those guys with Demon Pact, and you are cooking.
Right, yeah, I guess you can get the value off it by doing 1 damage in the roots and then just dust it for the beast.
It's also just pretty darn helpful against, like, for Fox, whenever he's playing against Zoe, because Zoe has a lot of things that don't do well versus Canopy Archer. Like, you can pick off, like, a Shade, her Crypto just gets ate by it, Fox Familiar, a Karu. She has lots of things that don't really like getting hit with Canopy Archer.
Yeah, that's true. Lots of good targets.
Yeah. Oh, Vipers, too.
Yeah, so I'll let you choose. Should we go over the lore first, or do you want to go over the patch notes?
I want to do the patch notes.
Alright, let us do that. Patch number 81, a new cycle. The part you've all been waiting for. The title card for it is pretty cool. It's got Boron holding a sun and a moon in each hand, kind of showing some duality. Could be pretty interesting what that's about.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like teasing a new spell. Because, like, I don't think they would make art and then only use it for the patch.
I think it's just kind of like solidifying the world building and like weaving into the themes they have, because I really like the lore and the backstory for this game. Like, they draw on a lot of stories and archetypes from like all different cultures and different, I don't know, you would call them like cultures, worldviews, beliefs about the creation of the world and reality and stuff like that.
There's a lot
They've
of
definitely
different perspectives represented.
There's a lot of what, sorry?
There's a lot of different perspectives represented.
Yeah, definitely. But the themes of light and dark in creation are pretty common across all cultures, so I think that's cool. And Boron is like the one who most represents death, and there's a link between life and death and creation and stuff like that. So pretty cool. Yeah, so the first thing it says in the patch, Conquest Arena updated, added flavor text to every card, so we now have lore, which is extremely hype. The card art update, we already talked about that. Yeah, so the economy and the progression got changed a bit, but I don't know if we really need to go over that.
With like Conquest now, I've been like working hard and grinding out like my collection stuff. The progression feels amazing.
Yeah, it does.
Because you can get basically any card you want. Like, there's no cards that are really like gate kept from you because they're like, oh, it's legendary rarity or whatever. It's just you can only get so many at once.
Yeah, I really like how there's no rarities in this game. Like, I also played Hearthstone and Eternal, and you just needed so many like rare, expensive cards that you would never get to build a real deck. But in this game, you just quickly unlock all the cards and build whatever deck you want.
Yeah, it's just a fun game. They don't play around with you.
Another interesting thing to note is they changed the number of Grand Weavers from top 25 to top 100, which I wasn't expecting, but I guess it makes sense now that there's so many more players.
Yeah, top 25. I think I'll be able to get, but that'd be a bit harder.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna aim for that eventually, but it's definitely hard. Hopefully, now that there's more people, it won't be. And now that people aren't trying to like smurf their way into top 500, people will just be queuing on their mains, and you'll be able to like actually fight people the same ELO as you instead of people 100 ELO below you, and you lose 30 and gain 3 or whatever.
Yeah, because there's one game I remember Hanu had where he straight up won and he got 0 elo.
Yeah, it's probably like plus 0.2 or something.
I was still waiting for the negative elo win.
Alright, should we jump into these changes here?
Oh, yeah.
Hit me with the first one. What do we got?
Okay, we've got Grunk. Grunk is a 2-mana unit with Anima and Guard. His power was previously 3 with 2 health. It has now been updated to where he has 2 power and 3 health. JustAddBacon, what do you
think? Yeah, so I think this is a good change. Like, Grunk being a strength unit, he wants to be a bit bulkier. A 3-2 stat line on a 2-cost unit is a much more agility thing than a strength thing, and this card was by no means like too strong, so I think they're trying to buff it up a bit, and it'll make it a lot better. Mostly in Discovery, where you're just going to be sometimes forced to throw it down on the board, and instead of dying to banner, it'll stick around a little longer, maybe give you a chance to pop the anima. In Constructed, you usually wait to combo this and pop the anima. Most notably with Windsword, Grunk Windsword is a staple. And now instead of being a 7/5, which it was before, it will now be a 6/6.
Yep.
Which is definitely better. I mean, as most of you probably know, health is a more valuable stat on a unit than attack, and it's just going to live that many more things at 6 health. So that's very scary. 4 mana 6/6 for 2 cards. It can come down on turn 2.
Yeah, it's this card's gonna be pretty good. I don't know how good, but that's pretty good. There's one Mira deck that hasn't been around for a long time, but I remember it used to be pretty good. It was Mira Anima. This was back whenever like Timber had an Anima on it, but now that Root Hog does, I think you can bring it back. And the whole argument for the deck is your only 2-mana unit is Grunk, your only 3-mana unit is Mushka, and then at 5 you run like Root Hog, Timber, Rumbo, and probably like Hive or something else. And basically you have Chromecast. So if you Chromecast on turn 2, that is a 2-mana 4/5 with Guard and Lead. On turn 3, like if you already drew your Grunk, it's just a 3-mana 5/5 with Lead. And if you hit like your 5-mana unit and you happen to hit Root Hog, that becomes a 5-mana 5/8 with Guard and Lead, and it roots the entire board.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and then you do that with like, I don't know, an Unophobia package or whatever, because you don't want any 2-mana or 3-mana units. So like, you have all that burn later too. It's just like, it's a very explosive type of aggro, because you just get to connect these really, really big things very fast and consistently. Because you can also be running like Windsword in there. You can also have Leonidas if you want.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Leonidas when you said Mira Anima. My mind instantly went to Leonidas, which is one of my favorite cards and one of the coolest ways to pop Anima, but I just feel it's always been a bit weak and like hasn't seen much play in the meta.
Oh no, dude, Leonidas is a good card. Okay, so the thing with Leonidas in Mira Anima is that if you run it, you don't get to go for the Mishka very reliably. You can take Leonidas in the opening. Leonidas is viable in the opening. But also, like, if you do want to go for that Mishka, you can't run it. But, like, if you get Chromecast, you probably want to go for Grunk anyways. So it is, like, permissible. The big deal with Leonidas is that you can run it with, like, Savage Garden, and then that's just big tempo. But also, Leonidas is secretly a really good disruption tool. Because if you just have Leonidas on board, he kind of locks your opponent out of enchantments and attachments until they're able to do something about him.
Yeah, that's true. He's like a mini Amaruth. Only problem is 2 armored health is a bit easy to kill.
It's a little bit easy, but it's not super weak. I have a City Floodwater build that also uses Tempest Brew, so I actually play him quite effectively because I use him with like Glacia, Trident True, Earth Golem is a great target for him. Bubbles also, you can get rid of the Vapors just to get the free draw very fast. So, no, Leonidas is good, and he has his decks.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if you could eventually change to having 3 health to make him a bit sturdier.
If he has 3 health, he'd need to be a 2 attack unit. But
yeah, for sure.
Another 2/3 armored unit, and it's an int too. I feel like that stat line is too good for int.
What about a 1/3?
Then that's kind of just like sad. He's supposed to be like this big mecha lion tiger. His lore straight up says that like ancient Leoran kings figured out how to put their souls into like metal suits or whatever or something. Which I don't want to say this, but I feel like they had the art for Leonidas first, and then they came up with that as an explanation for it. But maybe because like they have the whole lightning is life thing or whatever. I don't know, but I feel like 3-2 stat line is where he needs to be.
Okay. I mean, on the lore thing, they definitely did that. Like the art for this game was made a long time ago, and like they probably started planning the world building, but at some point you just have to do it post hoc or whatever. Like just assign some lore onto some cards. But it makes sense. It's cool having like souls bound into mechs.
Yeah, that's some anime stuff.
For sure. Okay, next card I'll read is Forest Fire. So Forest Fire does 3 damage to all units. For each unit destroyed, summon Elderwood with Flames. And the change was it got Wither. Now Forest Fire was a notoriously weak spell. I think in the patch stream, Coulter said it was the lowest win rate hard card in the Prism. And no one ever runs this. It's not good because if you're using it to deal with aggro, you're going to wipe their board, but you're also going to give them a bunch of gas because the Elderwoods will die and they'll draw a bunch of 1-cost cards they can play and refill their board. So that's one reason it wasn't run very much, but now Wither makes it better against bigger boards that won't die to it. And it's actually like, it's kind of optimal to play on a board full of units that have more than 3 health, but 3 or less attack, because then you can reduce their board's attack to 0, but not give them the Elderwoods. So this makes it quite strong, I think.
Yeah, this is an AoE spell I think you run when you want to deal with mid-range, but you don't have access to options like Burninate. So, uniquely, the old Forest Fire, like even before it got Wither, was secretly really good against like my Horic builds, because I was always dropping like Cleo and Cascade and Eclipse and all of these little 1-cost things. And then whenever you Forest Fire it, you just make me draw like 10 cards, and my hand is just garbage.
Yeah, that's the one thing it has going for it, is it can overdraw and also do out of deck burn if they have no 1-cost units left in their deck.
Yeah, I find the burn damage rather ironic for a spell called Forest Fire. But I mean, I could see an argument for this in something like a Horic deck where you run Forest Fire and Burninate and Volcanic Blast, and then you have like Firesight. Oh, and maybe 3 Lashes too, so that way you can just like Firesight into just walls of AoE.
Yeah.
Sure, how effective that would be, because again, like you reload your opponent most likely. But Withering 3 is pretty good because 3 is the breakpoint, so I don't know.
Yeah. I do like the idea of the like milling your opponent's hand and the out of deck damage. I'm having the combo come to mind of using this with Whelm, but it's not really good. Like you could wipe their board and then return all their Elderwoods to hand, but I don't know if that's really that good for a 2-card combo.
No, the combo with this is you Forest Fire their board, you manage memory, and then you Forest Fire again.
Oh yeah.
Because then, if they had 2 units on board and you kill both of them, that makes them draw at least 4 cards. If it's 3, you make them draw 6 cards. And these are all 1-cost units, by the way. If it's 4, you make them draw 8 cards. It scales very fast. And if they have 5 or 6 units, you can straight up like overdraw their entire hand and just fill it with garbage.
Yeah, that is a 10 mana combo, right, to do in the same turn.
Yeah, but even the low roll of that is still like 6 Wither damage. So even if something like lives, it has -6 to its attack and power, or attack and health.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's any good, but like it's out there. It's a thing.
That's cool. Not too much else to say about Forest Fire.
Nah, it's kind of just, it's a card. It exists. Moving on, we have Hive, which is a 5-mana unit with Zap attached. It's got armor and 5 health. At the end of each of your turns, it will play a B unit, which is a little 1/1 with guard and armor. It also has a Zap. Before it had 0 power, and now it has a whopping 1 power.
Yep. Pretty scary change, despite not seeming so, but going from 0 power to 1 is a big deal, because before it can attack, and now it can. It can punch 1L things, it can break stealth by hitting the hero, and yeah, it just adds a lot of utility. But this card wasn't too strong before, so I think it's good. It's a really cool card. It's kind of like one of the defining cards of Ins Identity, a really great token generator. I mean, I think bees are super cool, so I like that there's a bee card in this game. And it being called Hive is sweet. It's just got great flavor.
Yeah. The chief function of this card previously was two things. One, control board. B, burn damage for Unophobia. Adding 1 power to this unit allows it to control board much better, because now your opponent can't really trade into it as easily. You might be able to pick up some kills with Hive. And also, having 1 power means every turn it stays alive, that can be 1 more point of damage you're putting into your opponent's face. Which may not be a ton, but Unophobia decks regularly, whenever they do close out, it is like either a complete blowout and it's not even close, or it's like an exact Unophobia. So getting just that extra 1 point of damage is going to be pretty helpful for Uno builds in general.
Yeah, that's true. Every point of damage counts. And it'd be good to see Uno make a comeback because it was so dominant for such a long time, and I think it's a really cool card and like a really cool build around, but it's kind of had a fall from its previous state.
Yeah, it got nerfed for Banjo Sins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did it? Was it? I think it was the Mai.
Well, first it was the Mai build because like you had the 1 mana teleport, you had 1 mana Huntaro, 2 mana Lao Sensei, and you could just chain everything. But even after those nerfs, the deck was still pretty darn good. It really died off after a lot of int staples got targeted because Banjo decks were too strong. Like, the deck used to run Angler, it used to be like a 2-2 with Stealth, which is the Carrion Crow stat line, actually. Let me pull it up. Cobalt used to be like a 1-2, I think. Ghost Duster used to be a 2-1 armor. Gato used to be a 1-1 stealth banner. And Hax used to have his research. So a lot of those like, important cards, they lost a bit of their utility.
Yeah, that's true. But Hive gonna be doing better with 1 attack. Hope to see it in some decks. Next is Trinketeer, and this is quite the change. This card was never run before. Coulter also said it was one of the lowest win rate cards in the Prism. So Trinketeer, 3 cost, 3/2, Stealth Shroud, with the effect. This effect used to be return your top dead 1 cost card to hand, and now it's add a copy of your top dead 1 cost card to hand, give it -1 cost if it's a spell. So you could recur stuff before, cool little tricks, but now you can do it for 1 less mana if it's a spell, which I think this is a really cool change, good design, and it's also the fact that it makes a copy is a buff to Unophobia because you're going to get, instead of just using the same card, you make a copy, so now you have 2 copies of Fire Rune or 2 copies of Arcane Ray or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm of the opinion that Trinketeer before was already a great card. Stealth Shroud on a 3/2 for 3 is like pretty good. It immediately replaces itself. It replaces itself with a 1 cost card, which 1 cost cards already tend to be some of the best cards in the game. Like you got Water Rune, you got Grim Reprisal, you've got like Strike Down as an option. Gato is a thing.
Yeah, way to recur Gato is pretty good.
Yeah, anything that involves Gato is automatically a good play. I do not care what it is. But now that it has a copy and also cost reduces it, that is just terrifying. So 2 things. 1, City Gato loops. This was something I was playing with before the game came out. It was already gross and disgusting, and this is just buffing it. Because now, my unfallows, I can be recurring 2 Gatos per unfallow, instead of just the 1, which means I get to delete your hand twice as fast. No, there is not counterplay, because I have already targeted your draw cards before you could even play them. Secondly, this is a big buff to Mira Unophobia decks, because me and Alpha Sapphire worked out that you can run Doubling Cube in the main deck, as well as Think Twice, and then at turn 7 is the earliest you can do this. You think twice for an out-of-deck Arcane Ray. You play Arcane Ray, you play Arcane Ray, you play Trinketeer, you play another Arcane Ray. That's 9 points of damage for 7 mana. And also, you now have 3 Arcane Rays in your discard pile, which also add to Unophobia damage.
Yeah, Arcane Ray is quite a strong burn spell.
Yeah, all 3 of those Arcane Rays can go to face, which means that Int Strength has better burn options than Agility, and I don't know how to feel about that.
But isn't one of them from Plane Ranger, so it has to be Agility?
No, you are in Mira. So what you do is you out of deck Arcane Ray through Sync twice. That's why you run Doubling Cube.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty strong. Lots of tricks you can do with this card. Fire Rune is a classic for me. It's just in my Agiant. It's a really good one-cost spell to use again.
Fire Rune is just good. There's no other way around it.
It's one of the strongest cards in the game. It's probably kind of broken, but it can't really be changed because it's a rune, so like what it does is kind of set in stone.
I don't think Fire Rune is broken, per se. What it is that, like, it has Hot Dog, and it synergizes very well with a lot of other things. Like, it's 1 mana banner draw, which is, like, always going to be helpful. And Banner Flames is also always going to be helpful. So it's just that it has a very high floor, so the card can never really be too bad in any given situation.
Yeah, it's got a lot of versatility.
Yeah, like On the Hunt is a very similar card. It's also 1 mana draw, but it replaces, it doesn't like have a Fury, it doesn't buff, it doesn't flame. But On the Hunt is also like still pretty darn good. So it's just that Fire Rune has all of the options.
We should move to the next card.
Yeah. This one is a old terror of mine. The unit is Bulldozer. This is a 3 mana 2/2 with Inspire 1 cost. It gains +1/+1. Before it had Chain Toss, it was a 1 mana spell that would give chains to a unit. Now it has Vial, which is a 1 mana spell that does 3 damage to an ally with Wither, and you draw a card. Geenareeno, you go first. Don't like this.
Yeah, so this card was slept on for a long time, and then with Banjo Aggro, it kind of showed everyone how strong it was, and it got nerfed pretty hard. I don't know if it used to have stealth, I don't think so, but it got changed by getting its Vial changed to chains so that it wouldn't go +1, and now it's getting it back. So it can quickly get out of hand.
Yeah. You know that one meme with like the penguin from like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer where he's just like crossing his arms angrily?
Maybe.
Yeah, that is entirely me. This card, it has okay, before looking at like the basic stats, look at this card holistically. This is a 4 mana 3/3 that draws, and you take 3 points of recoil damage. At that range, it dies to 1 mana removal. You go +1, you lose 3 health. You basically just played the Vial for 3 mana. At any point beyond that, whether you're talking about like a 5 mana 4/4 with another 1 mana spell, a 6 mana 5/5 with another like 2 1 mana spells, 7 mana 6/6, this thing scales very, very fast. Because as soon as you play a single other 1 mana card, it hits 4/4, which becomes a bit harder to kill and much harder to efficiently trade through. And then as soon as you get past that, it just gets out of hand. This card is really good. I would not be surprised if it gets nerfed in the future, because frankly, it just works. It just goes to town.
Yeah, it's really scary. It does scale well, and there's so many tricks to protect it. Like in the same prism, you have Force Field, so on 5 mana you play it with the Vial, then you protect it with Barrier, and it's like a 4/4 barrier.
Yeah.
And yeah, goes perfectly in Uno decks. So you're going to be playing so many 1-costs. It works with units too, so you can drop whatever, and it'll start buffing itself.
Gatto, B unit, Ghost Duster into a 1 mana spell. A lot of things. Goes really well with the next card we have. I think you want to take this one.
Yeah, this is Curious, my favorite card, my profile. And I was pretty sad when this card got nerfed because of Banjo Aggro originally, and it's gotten it got it's I think originally it got nerfed to a 4/3, then it got buffed up to a 3/4, and now it's back to a 4/4 where it originally was. So it's a 4 mana 4/4 with Shroud that says after you play your leftmost card in hand, draw a card, and it's just such a fun card where you run it in a deck with a bunch of cheap cards and try to set up your hand so that you can dump a bunch of cards on the board and they all go +1 or more if the cards themselves draw cards. So even on like 5 mana, if you don't want to try to risk it living a turn, you can drop Curious and then play like a light or something, and you'll draw a light card and an additional card if a light is your leftmost card in hand. So glad to see Curious back at 4/4. That's great, and I'm gonna have to build a deck and try it out. Probably since that's my preferred prism to usually use with a build like this.
Yeah, so I am of the opinion that Curious at a 4/4 is simply too good. Okay, here's my argument. Player 1, turn 1, you play like Fox Familiar or whatever, they answer. Player 1, turn 2, you flask Curious. The answers are Lightning Vial, Backstab, Waterline, Judgment. Other than that, like, this card just works. It just makes a ton of value. It has a great stat line, 4/4 for 4 with Shroud. It's perfectly on curve. It's going to trade well with units. It is not going to get hit by spells very often. And at worst, it is always going to replace itself as long as you play it correctly. There's like basically no way to really lose with this card other than tempo, but if you're playing it in an Uno deck where you have a lot of better 1-mana cards, and I don't know, also a Bulldozer that you're going to use this card to just machine gun your hand with, just like vomit card value, it just does all of the things. I think 3/4 was a much more fair stat line for it because it kind of tones down the aggression and the threat of it a little bit, which means where if you don't answer it immediately, you aren't quite as far down.
Yeah, and I could see it going back to a 3/4. It's just gonna need to be played and like proven that it's too strong. But like it being a 3/4 or a 4/4 isn't really a big difference. Like you don't play this card to control board, you play it to draw cards and get value.
Except it also controls board and creates value like at the same time whenever you play it, because it has to be answered. Like they have to do something about it.
Yeah, they do. It's one of the cards that demands an answer very immediately, or it quickly gets out of hand. Because it's Bulldozer does as well, but like your opponent probably just eventually draws into some hard removal and takes it out. But with Curious, if you take a few turns to remove it, the damage is already done, and your opponent has drawn like 4 cards because they played this unit.
Yeah. By the way, as we speak, I'm putting back together a Banjo Uno deck now that like we're talking about it, and the deck looks absolutely disgusting because it has like a lot of its old tools back.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about that. It keeps getting reverted, and a lot of the changes I was happy about, like this one, I'm good with. I was glad Dr. Vile got changed back, but let's wait till we get to the end of this patch, and then we can talk about that again.
Next up, we have Bubbles, and this thing is terrifying. It is a 2-mana, 2/2 guard unit, water intellect with vapors. Before it had Inspire Water, gain 1 health. It still has that, but also, if the card costs 1 or more, it instead gains +1/+1. This is huge. Geenareeno, you want to explain why?
Yeah, I don't like this card. I've always disliked it. I always thought it was really strong. Just because with stuff like Lifestream, you can pop vapors so many times, get a bunch of mana, and just make a huge, chunky 2-attack, high health guy. But now it's even scarier because it's getting +1/+1, and in Floodwater decks or any deck that's running a lot of water cards, it's going to be very easy to buff it up a lot.
Yeah, I have my aforementioned City Floodwater deck. This card went from being like something you run because you need like the 2 points of healing and guard to something you run because this is a freaking finisher. After a Floodwater, you are holding 8 water cards, and if you play half of those, this card is like a 7/7, at least.
Yeah.
It just works, and it is going to be terrifying, because now you have to deal with this, you gotta deal with Shelly, you gotta deal with Krakus, you gotta deal with Cryogen. Oh, and they played Clone Army, now you have to deal with Shelly, Bubbles, Krakus, Cryogen, and all of this mess like twice or 3 times in a game, especially if like they go for the Managed Memory Floodwater. Yeah, this is... Not only is this card like good now, I think you probably want to try and dust this card. It is that dangerous.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it with Clone Armor, and even something like Illusion, you get 2 of them on the board, and they're both getting buffed for every water card.
Yeah, or how about Sapphire, just making it +2/+2?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. This is the new best card to go with Sapphire.
Well, before it was already the best card to go with Sapphire, but that was a very low bar.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is good that it has to be a 1-cost card or more to get +1/+1, so the mana potions will only give 1 health, but yeah, we'll see. I think this might be pretty absurd.
Yeah, I hope it can stay. I don't think it'll get to stay.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Next is Rage Cage, a card I like quite a bit. I used to run it in an old deck. 2 mana. It was a 2 mana 2/2 with Armor, Banner, and Flames, and it's got a +1 power buff, so it went from 2 power to 3 power. And the point of this card is kind of that it comes with a negative enchant, and so if you don't want to pay the Flames because a 4 mana 3/2 Armor Banner is not really good. So the idea is you either just let it sit for 1 turn and then it's gonna die next turn, or you have some fancy way to remove the Flames and get value out of it. But this was a very weak card. No one ever ran it, so good to see the +1 power buff. There's a couple things I have to say about it, but what do you think about this?
The card is obviously better in Discovery. The best way to get rid of the Flames, in my opinion, is using this with like Tempest Brew, but that's kind of volatile. You can also like Casting Chrome, but I think Casting Chrome is just such an amazing card, and it has much better targets. You don't really want to do that. I don't think this really gets played much more, but I mean, maybe like a My build can do this with like Huntaro. Maybe they can use that as like a Run Wild enabler.
Oh yeah, it's cool off Dive Bomb or whatever.
Yeah, because then you put the Shroud on it.
That's quite strong. The thing I used to use it for was I ran it in a City Undergrowth enchant deck, and when you pull it off Undergrowth, it overwrites the Flames, and so this will make it much stronger there. It might be worth revisiting.
Oh yeah, that's clever.
Other thing I want to say about this is I remember its old effect back in the day was that it caused your opponent to take 2 damage from out of decking instead of 1, which was such a cool thing, but I think it's probably good to get rid of.
It basically never happened, and it was kind of like putting a little band-aid. It was trying to handle Control Summer, but like, you're telling me I'm supposed to use a 2-mana unit to counter a out-of-deck control deck? That's simply not going to work.
Yeah, it was supposed to be this like little tech card that you could do some fancy stuff with. Like we were talking about Forest Fire before, you could make your opponent draw a bunch of 1-cost cards. It's kind of synergized with El Monstruo, which was originally in Intellect, and you could like force your opponent to out of deck a 1-cost card and take 2 damage. But overall, it was just a bit janky and weird, so I think they decided to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But good change here. +1 power doesn't hurt. Like they were saying, +1 power is the smallest buff you can give a card, basically. So we'll see if it gets more play. It's got its niche, as we pointed out a few places it can be run, but still not going to be too common, I don't think.
Yeah, not really.
What do we got next?
Next up is Root Hog, and this is a card I really like. It is a 5-mana guard unit. It is Earth and Strength with a 3/6 stat line. Whenever it is summoned, it will attach roots to every enemy unit, and they added Banner, or not Banner, they added Anima onto it. God, I wish they added Banner. But the Anima is big here. This guy is going to be chunky.
Yeah, this is pretty scary.
Yeah, the big advantage to Anima here is that it kind of gives this unit a persistence against like negative enchant debuffs, which isn't quite as strong as Lead, but against a few things it can be helpful. Secondarily, probably the bigger thing is that now this card is just really bonkers off of Casting Chrome, because it just becomes like a 5/8 for 5 that roots their entire board. And
Yeah.
secretly, this card is really good against Zoe, because she really likes having her fates. She really likes her small, wide board that she can Blood Hunter with, and you can just drop Root Hog and laugh, because now your board costs like 12 mana to get rid of the roots, and then they just can't do anything.
Roots being a 3-mana enchant, you probably are going to only be able to remove 2, unless you're on 9 mana, then 3, but you have to spend all your mana just to attack with a couple units, so unless you have some special card. But there's not too many cards that give your own board an enchant, like there's Lead Goblet. I can't really think of any others.
Blaze of Glory.
Right, Blaze of Glory, which no one runs. Talk about that later.
Yeah, not a good card.
I did run this card once, and someone was running Lead Goblet, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, it's like one of the only counters of this card, and it just works perfectly. But that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I've got a build of Tridra, it's a Tridra build in Fox that uses like Aether Mask with Tridra and Air Rune, so that way you can kind of just set up on a Wiz player. But this guy right here is kind of a staple to that deck, because it gives me a way to deal with like the cheap aggro like Zoe I was talking about. It's also pretty darn good against like Mai too.
Having a chunky guard is nice. 3/6 is a good stat line.
Yeah, it's just a good card.
Next we have Earwig, who keeps getting changed. I guess we now know that this card was insanely busted for the longest time, since we're kind of seeing how strong it was now, but it stayed in the state it was before for a long time. So it's gone from being a 2-cost 2/3 to now a 3-cost 2/4. So it got +1 cost, +1 health, and it has Death, Attach Fate to the right and leftmost units in your hand, has Stealth. Formerly, it gave Fate to all units in your hand, which was just an insane amount of draw, but it's been toned back because of the Dark Ada deck that was running rampant for so long. And yeah, they're still trying to kind of put this thing in line, this Dark Ada deck, put it in line with everything else. As they were saying on the stream, being able to drop it so early just gave you like a lot of tempo very quickly. And I think this is a good change. Like it's still a strong card. 3-cost 2/4 Stealth is nice, and it's going to give you 2 draws, but having it come down a turn later should help a lot in terms of curbing the tempo it was getting before.
Yeah, I'm kind of salty because I was complaining about this card for months, because I was playing a Firefox deck that had this and Right Knight as the alternate Run Wild targets, and it was so busted. Because you could just like Run Wild it, immediately sack it into a unit, it'd be 3 mana, deal 3, and also give Fate to like Zumi and Blade Master and Muddermander and just everything in your hand. It was so stupid good. And then like Ada, which like is kind of good, but like I've never really seen it being like that strong. Just comes in and now like Earwig just gets nerfed every patch. The cool part about this change is that now I can run this in my Horic builds, because I can play it with Rumbo. And I can just like rip that out of my deck with like all these other 3-mana units. I've got Sabletooth now. More importantly, also for Horic, before Earwig sitting at 2 meant that Casket could hit Brimstone, Opal or Earwig. And hitting Earwig was not really preferable to those other options, because you just got draw. Do you really need more draw? And also doubling Fate on your hand doesn't really work out as well. But now that it's at 3, it will no longer be hitting like that, and it can even block hitting Chester, which generally ends up being too many cards. So this is a very good change for Horic. This is not a good change for a lot of other people.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a nerf, but I think it deserved one.
Yeah, the card was just good. Too good. Next up is Hyper Beam, This card actually got a little flip around because the Earwig got moved from 2 to 3. This guy got moved from 3 to 2. It is a 2-mana spell now, and it does 1 damage to a target unit for every card in their hand. And before it would give daze, now it no longer does, but like it's a 2-mana, potentially deal up to 9 spell. Geenareeno, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this card is, I think, quite strong now. It was already decent, but just could sometimes not be worth 3 mana, but now at 2, it's almost always going to be good. Like, it's good to keep early, it's going to scale well late. Like, there's other cards in the game that are 2 cost deal 3, there's also 1 cost deal 3, but your opponent is usually going to have, like, 3 or 4 or more cards. Like, unless you're playing some like hyper aggro, they're probably going to have at least 4 cards in their hand, and so 2 cost deal 4 is just really good. Of course, it's the premium 2 cost removal incinerate, and it's going to go even or better with that. So I think this is now going to be a very strong spell.
Yeah, I think this card is generally going to be not good at lower levels of play and really good at higher levels of play. So at higher levels of play, people generally have more cards in their hand. They're better at manipulating card value. So it'll be...
Yeah.
What I think is neat is that this is secretly like a pretty neat buff for Iris like decks, because they, like my Iris builds, really enjoy running Zavi because it fills the role of like hard removal on a stick, and Zavi is also a important reload because it finds things like Sky Channel, potentially Touch the Sky, Turn the Tide, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it just slightly improves that deck a little. And also, having another hard removal option is good, because Strength, believe it or not, is supposed to be the second best removal prism after Intellect.
Yeah.
So this better
Also,
does the design.
Yeah, I also just realized it's a decent target for Think Twice, I guess. Maybe, if you really need to punch through a bunch of stuff, but it's probably not going to be a combo.
Mira already has Mad Vibes, so the thing is probably you run this guy and Mad Vibes, and then you can just always Think Twice into doubled up hard removal, which that could be pretty
yeah.
good, because Mira also has some pretty darn good AoE spells.
Next, we have Moltenus, which I always love this card. It's such a cool card, but it is very weak. 8 cost, 8/7 with guard. Death effect, do 4 damage to non-fire units and attach flames to them. And this was the change that got a comma added and spawned the comma meme that has been running through Discord. Got quite a rise out of everyone.
Yeah, it's the original. Whenever Shavari read it off, she read, "Def, do 4 damage to non-fire units and attach flames to them. 2, Def, do 4 damage to non-fire units, comma, and attach flames to them."
Yeah. We'll see if the comma stays. We'll see if it goes. It's definitely the most famous comma in Skyweaver right now. But but it has 7 health instead of 6 now, so 8/7 is a pretty beefy stat line. This card is just, I don't really know what it's supposed to do or what role it's supposed to fill. It's like a beefy high-end unit. I've tried running an Aetherwell before, but the problem is, like, well, okay, I guess it goes in Strength Fire decks, because, like, it's going to nuke your board unless you have fire units. So you want to run it with things like Ifrit, which will give you only fire cards in your hand.
This guy, I think, has like 2 or 3 different potential uses. 1, pure Foxfire mid-range deck. It's Fox, but you run literally every fire card. This guy is kind of good there because you also have Tiamat and Mothermander and Ifrit, so you guys can kind of spread out the hard removal burden, and then he just like blows up their board when he dies. Secondarily, you can run it in Horic builds because Horic can take advantage of fire, Horic can take advantage of death effects, and this guy synergizes very well with like Jar of Souls, Phoenix Plume, Grave Royal. He just makes Grave Royal like a board reset.
Right, yeah, I guess it is good with Grave Royal and Horic decks. It can kind of just be a defensive tool, like if you drop it on its own, hope they don't have a silence.
Yeah, He is a big, expensive defensive pivot. So if you're running a Horic deck and you want that big defensive pivot, A, probably run Dracomantium. B, if you aren't running Dracomantium, run this and run it with Buckler up. If you run this guy with Buckler up, this guy gets terrifying. Because even after they kill it, they still lose their board regardless, so you just always go plus in value. Other than that, though, I don't really see much great use for this card because, like, it's strong. It has a good stat line. There's other cards that can do that, and they get their value in much safer ways. Like, you could play Libra, you could play Colossaloid if you want, like, a big Def, although that has guard. If you want, like, these big units, Strength, I think, actually has better big units around, like, 6 and 5, like Geode and Cavalry. And I'm not sure why you want to run Moltenus, unless you want, like, that big explosive defensive pivot.
Yeah, I could see this getting another point of health to make it more viable, but we'll have to see what happens.
If it got another point of health, I might run it. It would definitely be ran in, like, the Horic Fire builds, because then, like, you take advantage of Firesight and On the Hunt, and you can just, like, wall people out with AoE after AoE after AoE. Because every fire card in Strength Heart is just an AoE spell.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Moving on, we have Dark Adept. This card just keeps getting buffed, and I think we're probably at a point where it's getting a bit terrifying now. Dark Adept is a 3-mana, obviously a dark unit, in Heart. It has Guard and Lifesteal, and after another ally unit dies, it will draw and attach your lowest cost dark spell onto itself. Before it had 4 health, now it has 5. Geenareeno?
Yeah, and it has 2 attack, 2/5 now. So 3 cost, 2/5 guard lifesteal, that's already pretty good as a defensive wall. And yeah, drawing dark spells onto it, I mean, that's pretty good. This card was just so bad and unviable for so long. It was literally the definition of a discovery card, like you just wouldn't run it. I think it was like a 3 cost 2/4 with no keywords or something. It was pretty bad. But this is going to grab stuff like, I mean, I don't even know what it's going to grab. Like, my mind goes to Grim Reprisal, but you probably don't run this in Zoe unless it's a really off-meta Zoe deck. It can get Wed Dead. It can get Dark Rune. What do you think?
I think if this card is ran, it's going to be ran in Zoe decks, because they already enjoy playing all of their tokens and Vipers, and they just, like, run stuff into other things. Teenage Witch works well, and Soul Guide works well, so we know that triggering off of ally dying works well. Oh, wait. Hey, I just caught something. You remember a while back, the change to Mortal Blow? How they changed it from kill to destroy?
Yeah.
This card reads after another ally unit dies. It should read after another ally unit is destroyed.
No, I think they still use dies. It's just talking about, like, they got rid of kill. It doesn't say after another ally unit is killed.
I mean, but card units in Skyweaver aren't, like, killed. They can't die because they're echoes or whatever. They get destroyed.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Anyways, yeah, this guy goes in Zoe, and I think that this card is probably good now. The thing is that it competes with Carrion Crow, and Carrion Crow is just like an immediate, reliable spell searcher. So you're making the trade of consistency for power here, because Dark Adept obviously has a much better stat line. Since it draws like lowest cost, you can hit good targets with it, like you got Grim Reprisal, Dark Rune, like you said. Wed Dead can be an option, but also you have Voodoo Doll. You've got Deadweight, which can just be like a 2-mana kill spell. You can find Baneblade, you can find Dirge higher up, and if you already have that full board, ripping Dirge out of your deck for 3, and then making this guy a 3/6 guard lifesteal, that's pretty good. The risk with this card is that if you play it, and then you still have units on board, your opponent can kill your other units to mill dark spells from your deck, and then kill and you just lose a ton of value.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Like, the problem with it is you kind of have to be careful how you build your board. Like, maybe only play one other unit than this, because if you have a bunch of stuff and you're, like, building a board to attack, they can destroy all the other ones, like, delete 3 spells from your deck, and then kill this unit as well or something. But if you set it up right, it can be strong. Like, if you put it down by itself, they can't do anything like that. And then next turn you drop whatever and a Soul Guide and play Kill in Twain or something like that.
Yeah. In my opinion, the worst part about this card is that Wall of Dead is just infinitely better. Like, if my options are Dark Adept or Wall of Dead, I'm going to take Wall of Dead every time. You really don't want Wall of Dead off of Dark Adept, and you really don't want your Wall of Dead getting burned by your Dark Adept.
Yeah.
So, as long as these two cards exist at the same time, I don't really see any way that Dark Adept gets played, unless your deck already contradicts Wall of Dead. But if you're playing a Zoe deck, because I'm pretty sure Dark Adept only works in Zoe, then in what instance are you playing a Zoe deck where Wall of Dead is worse than Dark Adept? Because you can do Wall of Dead into Bloodhunter.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can work in other prisms. That's a good point for Zoe, but like you can slap it in a city deck and get Mutate, or put it in Axel and get Eradicate or something like that.
See, for Axel, I don't really agree with that because I think that you'd want to be doing a Royal loop. You'd want to be looping, like, you can use Eldest to loop, like, 2 Undragons and do that. You can loop a Libra off of Grave Royal and just get an extra 7 health. You can loop Comet, so I don't think it really works in Axel. For City, I feel like because City has access to Teleport, like, why would you not just run Carrion Crow? City has access to Teleport too, so I'm not really sure why you wouldn't just run Carrion Crow for, like, your Mutate or your Defrag. And also, City doesn't really have too many good dark options.
Yeah, well, we'll see what people come up with.
Yeah, I have seen it's pretty darn good in Discovery.
Yeah. Especially with all these buffs. It's becoming quite scary in Discovery.
Yeah.
Alright, we have our final change, which is quite spicy, if I must say. And it's yet another revert from the Banjo Aggro Apocalypse. And the top end card, which was probably the main offender of that deck, has gotten a buff back. So I'm talking about Gemini, 8 mana 6/6 with guard, with a text play, target ally unit gains guard and copies this unit's power and health. So you essentially get 12/12 for 8 mana. Now it's not as bad as it was before, because before Gemini had lead and it also gave lead. Now there's no lead on either unit, so that makes it a lot better. But yeah, 6/6 Gemini is back, and like you were saying before, Banjo Aggro might be back as well.
Yeah, so, in short, thanks, I hate it. 8 mana 12/12 for a stat line is just ridiculous. Like, Titanic is a 10 mana unit, that's an 11/11, and it also has to chomp through the entire enemy board, which means that it mostly functions as just a really strong removal spell with hit points. Gemini gets to come down on turn 8, and it exists in the Int Prism, which means half of your units just have armor. You remember that hive we were talking about earlier, how it just spits out bees every turn? You basically have to fully clear your opponent's board every turn once you get around to turn 8. Otherwise, your opponent can drop Gemini, and it basically works like this huge buff spell that also plays a 6 mana, or plays a 6/6 at the same time. Like, Weighted Die is a 8 mana buff spell in Strength that gives +1/+1 guard and armor to an ally, or to a random ally 6 times. That is a buff spell in Strength. Int, on the other hand, just gets to set a unit to 6/6. Which means that they get to pick out, like, literally any of their bees. Oh, you just happened to leave this Gatto on board. Oh, I had a tactician behind a barrier this whole time that you just haven't been able to kill because my removal spells are like 2 mana. Well, now it's a 6/6 and it has lifesteal. Or how about like our Trinketeer that has Stealth and Shroud, or our Curious that has Shroud. Or like I said, all of the little bees you're getting. Clearing board against Banjo is just such a pain, and as soon as they set up Gemini, because both of them have guard, both of them have the, like, at least 6/6, and one of them usually has armor, the only way you're beating this is if you're playing a, like, wacky Wisdom deck that has access to, like, Seal Doom and Doomsday, or Touch the Sky, which, like, that's just not cool. I do not like this card at all. I think this card creates kind of a toxic play space, where against what is not really a very interactive deck to begin with, you just have to kill their entire board every turn, which is freaking impossible with all of their draw options and stuff. I really do not like this.
Yeah, I kind of agree about the toxic play space. Like, when you're playing against a deck that has this card, you just always have to be worried about it once it gets to 8 mana, and you have to clear the board every turn, otherwise you are going to get smacked for a lot of damage or have your board cleared, and they're just going to get a huge swing on board. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Definitely a very strong unit. I think Banjo Aggro is going to come back a bit. Although it also helps other decks like any other int deck. You know, Mira, Mai can use this. It would be nice to see some Mai decks come back because she's been kind of languishing for a while. But definitely a very scary change.
Yeah, Mira did not need the help with her metal deck. Mai, I'm not sure if she can run this, but if she does, it's exactly the same problem as Banjo, except maybe white is bad.
It could be worse. Like, strength units are harder to clear. They kind of stick better.
Yeah, but you also don't get as much of a power buff, and you don't have wisdom removal behind it.
That's true, yeah. You get more value out of it.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, for Banjo specifically, you can run Giza, and then you either hit Menglong very early, or if you choose not to run Menglong, as soon as you've hit Giza with, I don't know, Casting Chrome, you just have Gemini turn 8 every game.
Yeah, that is pretty good consistency.
Oh, and you can find Casting Chrome off of Eldritch Lore. Also a 0-cost draw spell. This is fun.
To do that, do you play Eldritch Lore on 0 mana?
Yeah, you can play Eldritch Lore on 0 mana.
And then next turn you play the Casting Chrome?
Yeah, so hypothetically, it's like turn 1, Nico, turn 2, your opponent does whatever, I don't know. Mana, Flask, play Salvage, clear stuff, Eldritch Lore. Next turn, you just have to spend 1 mana, and then you can rep Giza.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, we are in for a fun time.
Yep, Gemini's back, gonna terrorize the meta. Hopefully Banjo Aggro is less absurd than last time. I don't think it'll be as bad, but we will have to see what happens. It'll be interesting. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. But that brings us to the end of the patch, and I gotta say, Bacon, we have talked for quite a while, and I don't know if we really have time to go over the lore, so we might have to save that for next episode.
I think we'll have to save that for the next episode as well.
But it's okay. Give us something to talk about. I'm excited to talk about the lore, but unlike you, I have not read every card, so in the meantime, I can do that. For this episode to close out, I think we'll talk about a few cards that we might want to see changed. And the one I want to talk about is Aegis of Glory, a card that's been getting a lot of attention and a lot of talk lately in the Discord because it's just oppressive in a similar way that Gemini is, where if you ever have a unit on board, they can drop this, and it's, you know, a 5 mana +4/+4 and shield. Also give blind to all enemies, which is just wild. So a buff spell that gives shield is pretty crazy because it's going to let you trade and kill with whatever you're hitting probably, and then they don't take any damage because of the shield, and now you have just a huge statted guy. Like, it's probably a 6/6 at least, and you've gone +1 by trading into a unit with shield, and their entire board is blinded, so they now have to hit whatever's in front, which is probably this creature you just buffed up. And as you've said many times in the Discord, Hero Blind is just kind of absurd, and no one wants to pay 5 mana to be able to choose what unit they're attacking with their hero. So, yeah. Aegis is a bit ridiculous. I think it'll get changed next patch. I'm not sure what approach they'll take, but something should be done about it, I think.
Yeah, I just want to mention it because Alpha posted this meme, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. For those of you who are not aware of the show, it's basically an anime, except it's not at all an anime, called King of the Hill. It centers around, like, Texas and Texas things, so, like, it's really cool. Go watch King of the Hill. It's a great show. Damn it, Bobby. There's this one character named Dale Gribble, who his whole thing is that like he's a nice guy, but he's also a bit of a conspiracy theorist. Like he just has all of these wacky conspiracies. There's this one scene where somebody is like trying to take a bag or something from him, and like he's fighting over this guy with the bag, and he just reaches into his front pocket and he just goes, "Pocket sand, yeah," and he just throws sand in this guy's eye. It's like
Pocket sand is a classic.
yes, I love it because like on one hand, this man is so paranoid that he just walks around with sand in his pocket. On the second hand, his paranoia actually pays off and it works, which is like even more hilarious. But Aegis of Light, Alpha has affectionately dubbed Pocket Sand, and I have adopted that full-heartedly. The card is kind of just like a Swiss Army knife, because you can remove attachments with it. You can just bash a unit into another unit. I like big things hitting each other. I think that's pretty fab. You just get this massive guard, and unless they're in Wisdom, where they have access to Whisk Away, that unit probably sticks. I reluctantly had to put this in Heatwave, because it's just too good. Because you play it with, like, Flock, you play it with Mothermander, and it's the exact same space with Gemini, where as soon as they don't clear your board, you just wallop them.
Yeah, it pretty much goes in every strength deck that's, like, board-based, which is pretty much every strength deck.
Yeah, it's too good. Just too good.
Mm-hmm. And what card do you want to see changed?
This is one I have had my issues with for a very long time. I am talking about another 5-mana strength spell that is called Blaze of Glory. This card is a 5-mana spell similar to Aegis of Light. It gives every ally unit +1 power, and it attaches Fury to them. Meaning, if the unit goes face, you will draw a 1-cost card, and the unit gets another +1/+1. So, on one hand, at 5 mana, if I have one unit, I can give it +4/+4. I can blind my entire enemy board, and it has shield now, and I can just run it into another thing. So it's also like a removal spell. I can kill anything that's like within a decent range. Like if I have a 2/2, I can kill the beast with Aegis and negate the fate, and their hero is blinded, and their entire board is blinded. With Blaze of Glory, if I have one unit, it gets +2/+1, and I draw a 1-cost card for 5 mana. It does not really scale that well either, because like if you're talking about 3 mana or 3 units, that's generally where most AoE buff spells tend to be centered around. You do, for 5 mana, you do 3 points of face damage, you draw 3 1-cost cards, you give your board +2/+1. It's just so weak. And not only that, but it's very dependent, because like you have to have at least like 3 mana or 3 units on board to be able to take advantage of the effect in any reasonable way. You also have to spend like that whole 5 mana, and you can only direct it into your opponent's face, which means if they have any board whatsoever, if they have any guards whatsoever, the card just doesn't work. It's too expensive. It doesn't really, even the reload it provides is suboptimal, because like instead of Blaze of Glory, why don't I just play Firesight and just draw 2? If you want to talk about like buffing things, Flamesport is a much better buff spell, because you only need 1 unit, it's only 3 mana, and you get Lifesteal, which is huge for aggro decks. And also, a lot of aggro decks, especially nowadays, they don't really run that many 1-cost cards, so you can end up just out-of-decking all of this random junk. It's like, oh cool, I got Skip and Speedster. I'm at turn 10, what am I supposed to do with these things? Like, even when it goes off well, you still have to be careful, because like, if you draw 4 cards with it, like how many cards were you holding in your hand first? You have to be holding only 4 cards. Otherwise you're going to overdraw for little 1-cost things. The card is too hard to use, it doesn't work. When it does work, it doesn't work well. There's no incentive. The ceiling is the floor.
It's kind of an awkward card. I think the design is really cool, and like I like it. I like the idea of giving your board Fury, but it's just like for all the reasons you pointed out, it's a bit awkward and clunky, and just doesn't quite fit well. I think there's a couple solutions. Like, I don't know if it would be too strong at 4. I don't know if +2 power at 5 would be too much. I know in the past they tried lifesteal, maybe? Or no?
Lifesteal was the original version of this card. It gave +1 power lifesteal inferiority to every ally unit. And what that did, it meant that you could completely, like, you didn't care that you were ignoring your opponent's board, because you would just reload, like, 10 health. You would go +2 or +3 or whatever. But honestly, I'm not even sure that that would be so good anymore, because, like, it only existed that way for one patch, and it was just me playing it, and, like, that was it. I think this card kind of needs to be, like, quite substantially reworked. There was one version of it where it was basically the flame sword we have now, where it gave +2 attack and lifesteal to an ally, and it gave every ally Fury.
Right.
I think if we want to keep it the way it is, the +1 power is helpful for Elderwoods, but I think it would be worth it if we got rid of that and made it like just a 3-mana spell with Banner that just gave Fury to every ally. That may be too good, because like that could be a ton of draw, but also we are in the Strength Prism, so actually developing a wide board is a bit more challenging. Something needs to be done though, this card just sucks.
It's such a cool card, though.
Yeah, I love the art. This was added. There was one tournament where like I messaged Coulter or whatever in like the tournament stream. I'm like, hey, if I win this, can you add more Fox cards? And he's like, yeah, lol. And then I actually won, and he added this guy in like Burning Blade. So like I have like a spiritual connection to this card.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, Burning Blade was in the game for a while, but this card got added right after you won that tournament.
Oh, maybe it was Run Wild.
No, that's been in WoW too. I think you're thinking of Pyrocrafter. That was the more recent Fox card.
Yeah, it was Pyrocrafter.
I got the Fox history unlocked, don't worry.
Yeah, because the art here is just beautiful.
It is. I hope we can find a way to make that card viable, because it's a cool... Board-wide Fury is just a very, like, fire thing. But we'll see what happens.
I don't know. In comparison to Aegis, it's just pitiful.
Yeah, exactly. Both 5-cost cards.
In the same prism.
Well, unless you have anything else to say, I think that about does it for this episode.
Nope, I'm all good.
Alright, well, we talked for a while. I thought this episode was going to be shorter, but it ended up being longer. Tune in next time. We'll do a deep dive on the lore, talk about whatever patch happens. But that's going to be it for us this time. So thanks for listening.
And we will see y'all in Sky.